The small town of San Miguel, nestled deep within the mountains, was a place where secrets lingered in the shadows and the past haunted every cobblestone street. For Juan, life was a repetitive cycle of quiet days spent tending his small bookshop. But one cold evening, his routine shattered when a mysterious woman walked through his door. She was strikingly beautiful, with long black hair cascading over her shoulders and eyes that seemed to hold an ocean of unspoken stories. Her presence was magnetic, drawing Juan's gaze away from his dusty books. But it wasn't just her beauty that captivated him, it was her silence. She never uttered a word. Juan tried to make conversation as she browsed the shelves, but she only responded with a faint smile. She purchased an old book, paid in cash, and left without a sound. The silence lingered in the air long after she had gone, wrapping around Juan like a heavy fog. Days turned into weeks, and the woman, whom Juan began calling the silent wife, in his mind, though he knew nothing about her marital status, became a regular visitor. She never spoke, never stayed long, but her presence haunted Juan's thoughts. He watched her each time, entranced by her silent beauty, yearning to know more. One night, after closing the shop, Juan spotted her standing outside, staring at the full moon. He hesitated, but curiosity overpowered his caution. He stepped outside and approached her. "Do you live around here?" he asked, hoping for any clue about her life. She nodded, her eyes never leaving the moon. Juan noticed a faint scar on her throat, like an old wound that had healed but never truly disappeared. "Do you ever speak?" he ventured cautiously. The woman turned to face him, her expression unreadable. She slowly shook her head, and Juan felt a chill run down his spine. There was something profoundly unsettling about her silence, something that hinted at a dark, buried secret. As the nights passed, Juan found himself falling deeper under her spell. He would wait by the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of her as she walked by. When she didn't show up, he felt a sense of emptiness that gnawed at him. One evening, she lingered at the shop longer than usual. Juan offered her a cup of tea, and to his surprise, she accepted. They sat in the dimly lit shop, the silence between them almost deafening. As the minutes ticked by, Juan felt an overwhelming urge to fill the silence. He told her about his life, his failed marriage, and the loneliness that had settled into his bones. She listened, her eyes fixed on him, absorbing every word. When he finally ran out of things to say, he looked at her, hoping for a response, but she simply nodded, her face expressionless. Later that night, as Juan was locking up, he noticed the book she had purchased weeks ago lying on the counter. It was open to a page filled with strange symbols and words written in a language he couldn't understand. At the bottom of the page was a drawing of a woman with her mouth sewn shut. His heart pounded as he tried to recall if he had ever seen that page before. Had she left it there intentionally? The thought unsettled him. He shoved the book back onto the shelf and locked up, but sleep eluded him that night. His dreams were filled with images of a silent woman, her lips stitched together, staring at him with lifeless eyes. The next day, Juan decided to follow her. He knew it was wrong, but he was desperate to uncover the mystery of her silence. He trailed her through the winding streets of San Miguel, keeping his distance as she made her way to the outskirts of town. She stopped at an old, abandoned house, its windows boarded up, and its garden overgrown with weeds. Juan watched from the shadows as she slipped inside. He waited for what felt like hours, but she never came out. As darkness fell, Juan's curiosity got the better of him. He crept up to the house, his heart racing. The front door was slightly ajar, and he pushed it open with trembling hands. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay. The walls were covered in faded photographs of a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl. Juan recognized the woman immediately. It was her, the silent wife, but she looked different, happier, alive. He wandered deeper into the house, and his eyes fell upon a dusty old mirror. Written across it in what looked like dried blood were the words, "Silencio es mi castigo." Silence is my punishment. Juan's breath hitched. Suddenly, he heard the sound of soft footsteps behind him. He turned around to find her standing there, her eyes filled with a sadness that seemed to span lifetimes. She raised her hand to her throat, tracing the scar with trembling fingers, and for the first time, Juan understood. She had been silenced, not by choice, but by force. As Juan pieced together the fragments of her past, the walls of the house seemed to close in around him. The images on the walls began to morph, showing scenes of violence and horror. The woman's husband, filled with rage, stitching her mouth shut to keep her secrets buried forever. Juan stumbled back, overwhelmed by the gruesome realization. The silent wife stepped closer, her expression shifting from sadness to anger. She pointed at the mirror, and Juan saw his own reflection staring back at him, but something was wrong. His mouth, too, was sewn shut. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing Juan saw was the woman's face, twisted in a chilling smile, as darkness consumed him. The townspeople never saw Juan again, and the bookshop remained abandoned, a silent monument to the horrors that had unfolded within. To this day, if you wander the streets of San Miguel on a moonlit night, you might catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure, a woman, beautiful but forever mute, searching for her next victim in the silence of the night.